Cool. So, Pannuzzo, honestly, dude, I was excited. I'm driving over here, and I'm like, when was the last time that him and I spoke? We did have a quick conversation over the phone, but prior to that, it was when I saw you in Seattle, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while.
And before that, the last time we did a podcast, at least my show, was back in July of 2020. So just about 3 years ago, over 3 years.
I'm pretty sure you were kind of an early guest of mine too, which my show's coming up on 3 years now. And we probably did some sort of home and home where it was like, I was on yours, you were on mine pretty, like we're almost back to back.
Yeah, man. So definitely excited to talk to you today. How's Cali treating you? How's life out there?
Life is good, dude. Life is really good. Family's great. Work is great, but I always say work is work. Everything's going great with my wife, Tasha. It's the challenge of being an entrepreneur and building businesses and, doing all the things that you want to do, being dad, being coach, being a committed husband, father, being, a leader for people who kind of, pay attention to me and who follow, the things that I'm doing. But I couldn't ask for a better journey. It's an interesting one though.
How so?
Yeah, being in it in the moment, it's not, I was just talking about this morning on one of my group calls. It's like, remember tug of war, like during field day in school, and like
my favorite event.
Favorite, right? Favorite. I wasn't very good at it. You're probably much better than me, but like, assuming the teams are fairly evenly matched, right? One team usually, boom, jumps up to a quick lead, but then everyone rallies on that team that's behind. They dig their heels in, and there's this back and forth in the tug of war. And I thought about that because I had heard that analogy, and just in terms of like transforming, change, trying to build something. It's like this fucking tug of war that's back and forth, and you feel like sometimes it's never going to end, and it's never going to end in a win for either side. And then ultimately, because you don't ever take too much time off, or you just keep chipping away, like what happens on ultimately the losing side? Like one person gives up, quits, falls down, like loses their balance. And that the end of the tug of war usually goes real quick, right? It's like the rope just goes that way. And oftentimes I feel like we don't hang around long enough for the rope to give and for us to pull and become victorious in whatever it is we're trying to. In my case right now, it's like I've been churning around, very successful in my business, but in churning around in certain areas. And just like, man, when is this thing going to take off? Because it's right there. All the pieces are right there for me. And I'm just waiting for that last stubborn, overweight, strong as hell ox on the end of the rope on that other team to go, I'm out, dude. I'm out. So, but while you're doing that, it's like don't give up too much ground. Take a little rest, take a pause, right? It's like a healthy stock chart, like for my guy's analogy, my executive's analogy, or maybe it's a good, solid, sustainable weight loss for people who we work with, right?
Yeah.
Lose 6 or 7, maybe go on a weekend vacay down to the Jersey Shore and put back on 1 or 2, and then you're right back on it. Or, so it's these things come in bunches, and then not to give too much back while you're sort of figuring out this new version of whatever you got going on, and then taking the next approach. And that's, I'm rambling now, but that's a little season of my life that I'm in.
No, that's great, dude. I could fucking relate to that. As you were talking about the tug of war, it makes me think of that meme that's, overused these days on social media. You see it all the time, but it's like the life of an entrepreneur meme, where it's like, my life is good, the sky is falling, and it's like this crazy fucking, squiggly line. Yeah. It just makes me think of that because even in my businesses, I don't think it's I don't think it's a process that ever ends. Like, I don't think that there is a moment where you finally get to a place where you're like, yeah, I'm good. Because there's always like, okay, business is good. We're making more money. We're getting more clients. We're helping more people. We're changing more lives. But there's different devils at different levels, right? So it's like anytime you get to that next level of business or in your relationship or whatever, there's always some fucking boogeyman that decides to jump out at you that you have to then figure out and solve that problem. And for me, we just hit 11 years running TTS. And yeah, man, it's so
That's incredible, man.
thank you, dude. So 11 years.
Like, think about that. How often do people do the same thing successfully for 11 years? It's like,
Yeah. Especially entrepreneurs. You know what I mean? I feel like people start businesses all the time. They get this idea, but don't stay consistent at it. Just like you were saying that, like people give up right before that rope shoots out. To be in the game for now, this is my 17th year in the industry, 11 years running the gym, and different levels of success along the way, but you still never feel like it's enough. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it's good for, hey, if we're going to keep growing, we're going to keep helping more people, changing more lives. I think it's good. But if you get lost in that, I think it could become, I don't know if it's a downfall, or the downside of it is that your head could get caught up in what's next versus enjoying the present moment.
Yeah.
I find myself taking a lot of time these days to try to really embrace the moment. It's a struggle. It's never perfect, but I could relate to what you're saying. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I think going back when you said, when you mentioned that entrepreneurship meme, and I've seen it, it looks like a spirally roller coaster. I originally thought, or immediately thought of like things that I do in my life that are principles, that are standards, that are daily non-negotiables. And I know you have, similar ones. Probably many of them are the same for you and I. But whatever they are for you, to me, that's the way I smooth out, the upside down, topsy-turvy part of the roller coaster, where it's like, yeah, I might not be able to operate at, 90 miles an hour for 3 straight months, but I can go 90 for a month. And then what do I need to do? What's the sort of bare minimum sometimes that I need to do just to coast, right? Because when our foot's on the gas, at 90, and we take our foot off the gas, we don't go to 0. We start to coast, and we slowly tick down. And you're still moving at a pretty decent pace for a reasonable period of time. You'd have to like put your foot on the brake in order to slow down, and you have to put your foot on the brake for at least several seconds when you're going 90 to completely come to a stop. So it's like, I kind of like these frameworks and analogies that, make sense to people. I talk about ways a lot in terms of like your turn by turn directions to get to a destination and getting back on track. But it's like, coasting's okay sometimes. I have a client who, unfortunately, his wife got into a bike accident, and she's going to be fine. She's healthy, she's safe, but she's pretty banged up in the hospital right now. And he's a high performing executive. And so like, there's not much that we could do, talking to a client like that, other than offer our support and be there for him. And if he needs to chat or whatever. So like, I immediately, while we were on the phone, I just got on. He lives fairly locally, but I didn't know like what meal prep service, I use some meal prep services sometimes. I was like, I just looked up a local meal prep service. I sent him 12 meals, 8 ground beef and potatoes and 4 ground turkey and yams. Right. And it's like, well, can you just simplify, at least make your life simple in some form, during these times of either coasting or turmoil, or you feel like you're hitting the upside down part of the roller coaster. Maybe that means you're getting just an extra walk-in instead of you're not able to get to the gym, or like, I just did 20 push-ups and split squats before we got on one, because I wanted to make sure I'm on the Iron Life podcast. I want to at least look like I got a decent pump.
Make the shirt fit a little bit more.
A little bit, bro, a little bit. I thought about cutting it, but
you should have took the sleeves.
One of my better shirts. But like, today is a sort of off day from the gym for me, but I'm going to accumulate 200 push-ups and 200 Bulgarians, right? Like just around my house. But I don't have time to do 200 of those all at once. First of all, I can't because I'm scrawny. But like, I don't have time, but I got time to do sets of 20. I got 10 2 to 3 minute moments of my day to do sets of 20 split squats and push-ups. Okay. And now, is that better than a 45-minute workout? Probably not. Probably. But like, is it better than 0? Absolutely. So, find moments to simplify things. Sometimes maybe that means going to Starbucks and getting the egg cups, bringing your protein shake, powder with you, and going to Chipotle to get chicken rice and, and the pico, like to stick to your nutrition. but it's like, it's not perfect. It's not your own healthy meal prep that you've made that doesn't have all the, maybe the crap that some of that, some of the foods that we have, but like, what can you do? What can you do right now that's a little bit better than the other choice? There's always something better. Very rarely do we really have to go to zero in whatever pillar. I'm talking about health right now, but whatever pillar of our life that we're talking to. Very, very, very rarely does like my business, does attention on my business have to go to zero because I want to be a great husband and father, or attention on my family go to zero because I want to be a successful businessman. It's like just thinking about where we can, do a little bit better than what might be required, or what might seem to be, the baseline is, I think, a really interesting thing that I think about that is very easily digestible and understandable for me. And I go, oh, I could do that. That's pretty easy. I could do 20 push-ups right now. I'll be back in a minute,
Yeah. Do you have any like exercises or something that you plug into your calendar where you're like, all right, I'm going to spend X amount of time brain dumping or just kind of organizing my priorities, writing stuff down? Like, do you have some type of practice or rituals for that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I do. I call it like my pillow test. Stole the name from another coach. At night, I audit, I adjust, and I act. So 3 A's, right? Triple A. And every night, like, so again, I work with high performing corporate executives. We all do, but like that's who my bread and butter is, right? A lot of them are financial professionals because of my background, 20-year financial professional. And the concept of auditing is very familiar for a lot of the people that I work with, but it should be familiar with every single person listening to this. We file taxes. That's a form of an audit. New Year's Eve rolls around and we talk about what we're going to do for the following year. That's a form of an audit. We get reflective on our birthdays, on holidays, maybe on big Wall Street thing, the 2-weeker. We're in the middle of the summer. I don't know when this is dropping, but like, you go down to the Jersey Shore for 2 weeks, right? You're on the beach, you're reading a book, like you get reflective about what's going on in your life. You ultimately come to some decisions about what you would love to do more of and what you'd love to do less of, right? Certainly sitting on that chair, maybe with a cocktail on the beach would be something you want to do more of. But really it comes down to like being present with your family, maybe, having a little bit more downtime to think or whatever. My point is we do these things during these landmark times of the year for us. What if we started to do them more frequently? I have I used to have a daily morning meeting. A lot of companies have a weekly sales call, a weekly marketing call, a weekly this, a monthly that. Public companies report their earnings quarterly. I used to trade the bonds of companies that sometimes were in default, in bankruptcy. You have to file a monthly operating report with your creditors. They also have to report monthly. So like if we have these mechanisms in our professional lives to audit what's happening, make adjustments, and then move on forward, what if we just applied them with the same frequency, if not more, to our personal life? And so I try to do it daily. Now, I don't always do it. I also attempt to remove the word try from my vocabulary. So I just used it. So I want to point it out to myself. I do it daily, as much as I can. And the more I do it, the more benefit I see. And what that does for me is it allows me to take stock of the last, 12 to 18 hours that I've been awake. And it allows me to review some wins, right? Because I got a lot of wins. Usually we just focus on the things that we did wrong or the losses of the day. But review your wins, review your game tape, develop this highlight tape in your mind of all the great things that you've done. My son's a young athlete. I know you coach a lot of athletes. Like, I'm really trying to get him to start to think about, like, first of all, number one, it's going to take a goddamn so much hard work for him to become, an elite performer, which he has the potential to be. But also like no one's going to think you're the man. It's a Jay Ferrugia quote, if you don't think you're the man, no one else will. And so like, develop a highlight reel for yourself. When we're driving to a game, what are you thinking about? Are you playing on your phone, or are you thinking about like that ball you hit in the gap, or the time you struck out, the sides 2 innings in a row, or you got out of a jam, or those 5 threes that you hit in a great, screen that you made, or whatever, like whatever your highlight reel is. So you can review your tape at night. Where I'm going with this is review your tapes. Figure out what you want to improve upon, because, we can't just say, oh, I did these things right. What about the things you did wrong? Figure out what you did wrong, make adjustments to those things. And it develops, for me at least, an action list for tomorrow. Now I have a morning routine, but I also know like things that I'm going through in those 3 A's during that pillow test. before your head hits the pillow. That's the part of it. Are actions I'm going to take tomorrow. And so that develops like, it's a little brain dump for me. And I develop a take action list, a power list type of thing for the next day. So that's, my process is it starts at night, because I think if you waking up and having, developing a plan is a great idea. But what if you had your plan developed before you even got up, and it's just another reason for me when the alarm goes off between 4 and 5 a.m. and I don't want to get up. It's like, well, I made a promise to myself that I was going to do these things tomorrow. I have this list. I'll look at it's right on my nightstand. It's right there.
And so it was audit. What were the 3 A's again?
Audit, adjust, make changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Act, take action on those.
Audit, adjust, act. Got it. Yeah, I love that, man. I'm always looking for little simple things like that I could add into my routine, or, just like you mentioned before, to simplify. I think in all different areas of life, especially now for me with a new baby, 7.5 weeks old, like things are becoming more complex. Things that were easier for me to do in day-to-day life are now, it's different. Like here's a perfect example.
Yeah. What are some of those things? I'm curious for you, because it's been, my daughter's going to be 9 soon. So I'm way out of the game.
So I'll give you an example this morning, right? So first off, sleep obviously has been shit. So sleep's been non-existent, but outside of that, which is weird, by the way, I just want to point this out. In any other instance, if my sleep was as bad as it has been for the last almost 8 weeks now, I would be a fucking zombie. I would be miserable. I would be pissed off. Like, I don't even know how I'm functioning. But it's like this, I guess when you have a child, it's like you're on that cloud 9 and you have this love that's like, that energy is almost carrying you through the weeks. It's kind of insane. Maybe that's just how we're wired in our DNA. But with that aside, so Gab, Wednesday mornings is when she goes to yoga. So that's my time to watch CJ, obviously. And during that time, it's like, if he's sleeping, great. I get my normal morning work done, my deep work that I usually do for like around 2 hours every morning. This morning, he was fucking crying nonstop. I'm moving him. I'm putting him on my shoulder. He puked on me. Then he shit on me. It's a whole big scene. And so now it's like, fuck, a lot of the work, probably 80% of the work that I wanted to get done this morning did not get done. So now I have to figure out more ways or better ways to plug that morning work time into my schedule, whether that be waking up earlier or just plugging it in somewhere later in the day. So I am, and then also taking a step back and saying like, all right, maybe in addition to changing some of my schedule around, what's some of the work that I'm doing right now that it's just busy work? Maybe it's something I've been doing for the last 5 years and it once served me, but now I'm at the point in life and business where maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. Maybe it's time to delegate this, outsource it. So it's kind of, those are kind of the battles that I'm facing with right now. From a training standpoint, somebody asked me this. They were like, I put up like, asked me a question on Instagram, and someone was like, like, how has your life changed on the training side of things since CJ was born? I'm like, it hasn't. Like, for me, training is a priority. If I don't train, I'm not my best. If I'm not my best, how could I be the best father for CJ? Right? How could I be my best for Gab? I wouldn't be able to. So I have to make it a priority. Has it changed in the sense of like maybe my schedule's a little bit different? Yeah, but I still get that shit done. Like, it's a top priority. Even if that means instead of going to TTS or, one of the other gyms I train at, I run over to the gym in my apartment complex, and I'll just use the bullshit equipment that they got in there to get a quick pump session in. No matter what, it's like you said, getting split squats and push-ups in. It's just doing the fucking work, doing something. So anyway, that's how my life changed.
Have you had to adjust your expectations of performance at all? And have you gotten frustrated by that? Have you found yourself in that cycle of like, oh, well, I'm at the apartment, gym, and these, I'm a meathead. I only got 70-pound dumbbells here. I can't, what am I going to do with these things? Have you had to like, I can appreciate you getting it in
Mm-hmm.
because that's your mentality. And it's not just because you own a gym and you train people for a living. I believe that it would be that way otherwise. But I'm sure you have pretty high expectations of your performance in the gym. How has your performance been? And have you struggled with managing? Well, I didn't sleep very much last night, so I don't have a ton of energy today, so I'm not going to be able to PR. Like, what's that been like?
So for the longest time, dude, to be honest, like I've been okay with auto regulating.
Mm.
So in the sense of like, fuck, I'm not feeling it today. If I'm not feeling it today and I need to dial it down a little bit, I'm cool with that at this stage of the game. Like I've been training long enough to understand like how I feel. And as far as like my performance goes, I'm also cool. Listen, if I want to get after it, I'll figure out a way. Like if I'm feeling good and I'm in my shitty little fucking gym and I got 45 minutes to squeeze something in, if I want to make something hard, I'll make it hard and I'll push it. But if I'm not feeling it, I'm okay with scaling back a little bit. Um, yeah, I think I've just over the years of training myself, like I've been doing this long enough to just know like if I'm not feeling it or if I've slept 3 hours last night, I should probably gear it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that part of it hasn't really affected me too much, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
What has the stuff I told you about earlier, like work wise, and also silly things like if I'm here recording this podcast and before the baby, Gab would go food shopping around the same time. Now she can't because I have the car seat in my car or something silly like that. And I get home and shit, all right, we don't have groceries. Maybe I got to run to the store, whatever, or we have to fucking use Instacart or something like that.
Yeah.
Little things like that, we're just kind of adapting and adjusting. There's still that learning curve there and getting the schedule to be quote unquote perfect. We're still working those kinks out. I think that's been the biggest shift.
Yeah. I not in the context of having a new baby, but I've also realized, I'm thinking like, well, what's my time worth? And I'm reevaluating trips to the grocery store. And I'm still going. I still go. I still go regularly. But it's like, could I get on the phone and talk to, a potential client for that 30 minutes or 45 minutes? And like,
Outsource the grocery shopping.
I'm gonna pay $15 for somebody to do my groceries,
Yep.
but I could sell a $6,000 package, in that 45 minutes. It's like,
Right.
what, but like, I grew up a blue collar kid. We did all these things. I'm like, I'm conditioned to do things. I work from home. My laundry is not too far from where I'm sitting right now. Best believe when there's something that's difficult inside of my business that I'm working on right here, I'm like, oh man, I gotta fold my stuff, So like there's this pull to move away from something that might be hard and something that feels productive. Cause I also, I know we talked more about my story the first time I was on. Like I spent a really good portion of my career not like not giving a fuck about my life at home, but it just wasn't a priority to me because I
Yeah.
thought that I had to be the producer. And so now I found myself, or previous to the last year or so, where I kind of figured out what I was doing, I completely went to the other end of the spectrum where I was like, how can I be the greatest husband, partner, father I possibly can be? And I was massively successful at that. But it came at the cost of like being really, really successful in my business. Now, a lot of people would look at my business and go, wow, you started that 2 years ago. That's incredible. But like, it didn't meet my expectations. Still doesn't. It's getting close, but it still doesn't, and so, and why was that? Well, oftentimes I was finding other things to do to feel like I was being a contributor to the household. And look, there's no shame in saying it. There's probably most people that are listening to this right now. The likelihood of your hourly rate being above folding towels and your kids' underwear is probably fairly high. And so maybe you're supposed to do some other things and outsource things and make a list of things that you don't like doing and make a list of things that you shouldn't be doing and focus slowly over time. on those new ones. So moments like this where you're forced into it are helpful ultimately, because it's like, well, oh, I don't have to go to Costco. I could pay someone $15 to push that barrel around and fight other wheelbarrows around me. So like I'll save my grocery runs for Trader Joe's, where I'm like a ninja and I'm in and out of there in 6 minutes,
Right.
you know, with 15 things. Like when I'm near Trader Joe's in the flow of my day, and it doesn't cost me more than 15 minutes. I ain't wasting an hour going to Costco anymore, you know. And
I appreciate this conversation so much right now, because this is the exact talks that Gab and I have been having lately. It's like, we got to start outsourcing this shit, because things that because Gab's an entrepreneur too. So she's building her business. I'm building mine. She's also helping with TTS. Like, so we're doing a lot of this stuff, and it's like, all right, well, we're also making dinner. We're also going grocery shopping. We're also getting fucking toilet paper and whatever else we need, laundry, all the things that you talked about. So you're 100% right. This is now the opportunity. We're kind of forced into it. But I think, to your point earlier, like if people could, myself included, by the way, just schedule these audits to take a look at your life and say, what's some of these things that I can outsource? What's some of these things that I can delegate to somebody else that are not serving me anymore? And like these are things that when I was single, living by myself, like I throw my laundry in. It's 1, 2, 3. It's something that doesn't take too much time. But now, if you got fucking CJ shitting his pants all the time, I got dirty baby clothes like that. I'm like washing in the sink before we throw it into the washer. It's a different animal. Like, there's just more to do. And now it's like, all right, well, at this point, business is at a different level, family's at a different level. It's time to make some changes. Don't think that you have to do everything. So if I'm just, brain dumping right now and being transparent, I think that's something I've been good at in business, is outsourcing, delegating, creating systems. But in the home life, not as good, with things like this. And now it's time to kind of get that stuff in order.
Yeah, I talk about this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I talk this a lot in the context, because I'm talking to people, men and women who have been incredibly successful building a really, really, great career. And it's like, what to do. You've done it in your career. Yeah. And also, let me remind you that you've done it despite all of the chaos and the fires and the roadblocks and whatever comes your way. You're a professional. You show up as a professional. Very rarely does anyone who is listening to this ever not show up to work. Now, of course, there are things that come up that, prevent us from, going to work on a particular day. But you've just been talking about it the whole time. You haven't slept in 8 weeks, and you're still showing up inside of your business. Yet when we don't sleep, and I'm doing that in air quotes, because whatever that is, whatever that conflict, whatever that chaos, whatever that fire that pops up in your life, that's the proverbial "I didn't sleep last night," is your diet goes to shit. You don't do your workout. You don't communicate with your spouse. You don't walk your 10,000 steps. You don't, whatever it is, then you turn to, other things to help you along the way, or sedate, maybe if it's conflict or pain or whatever. And it's like, just show up to work. And you showed up to work. Why'd you get a cheesesteak? Just get the salad that you said you were going to get. And if I find like we put our career on a pedestal of, having expectations to not miss and to stay consistent. And what if we just had the same expectations as individuals?
Yeah. It's easier, right? Because if you're building a business, or you're growing your career and you're making money, you're seeing that tangible outcome, right? You're seeing that result. There's more money in the bank account, or whatever, however you're measuring success in the business. I think that for most of us, it's more difficult to measure success in these other areas in your life, and because it's not as tangible, right? It's not as measurable. And if you could have ways to maybe measure that, you could.
There you go, coach. That's where I was going to take you next.
Yeah, hey, tell
What
me.
if you did measure it? Well,
Fill
what
me
if you
in.
measured it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you, and that's where the auditing comes in. That's
Yeah.
where the adjusting comes in. If you had systems and mechanisms to measure these things, then took appropriate action, then had an accountability a procedure to say, is it working? Is it not? Let's do more of what's working. Let's do less of what's not. Let's go down this road again. Let's audit again. Is it working? Is it not? And you do this over and over and over again. It's what you're doing in your professional life. If you had the proper system to do it in your personal life, you couldn't not fail. And I mean, that's why people like you and I have jobs and are very successful, because we help people do that.
Love it, dude. Yeah, I love that. Now, you did mention, you said you've been doing, is it 2 years now? You've been running your business, or 3 years?
I mean, I've been out of, I just passed my 4-year anniversary of leaving Wall Street.
Congrats.
For the first, thanks, man. For the first year, I played golf and drank vodka for most of it. Got serious about my job, my new career, about 2.5 to 3 years ago, and kind of finally figured out what the heck I was doing, I would say about a year or so ago.
Now, you said that your business has grown pretty significantly the last couple of years. And if anybody took a look at your business, they would say, holy shit, like, how'd you do this in 2 years? What are some things on the business side that you have done to grow your business these last couple of years?
Yeah. So, I mean, from revenue and size standpoint, I mean, I just mean, like, I'm one guy who did something for 20 plus years and started completely from scratch, and now am supporting my family.
Yeah.
I discount that as being impressive, where I say that to people, they're like, that's incredible. And I'm like, well, I should be making more money. They're like, yeah, I know, but that's incredible what you're doing. So that's what I mean when I say that. But what I've really started to go all in on and tapped into is my area of expertise. I had, and I say had in the past tense because I don't anymore, because I know where I fall in the world that we now coexist in. I'm in your world of this sort of health, wellness, transformation, mindset world. I had really, really big imposter syndrome when I started, because you just said it yourself. You've been doing this for 17 years. Why would somebody hire Brian Pannuzzo a year in, 2 years in to of my career, my second mountain, when they could hire you, Johnny Al, Jay Ferrugia, everyone at Luca? I mean, all the guys we know that have been doing this for 20 plus years. It's like, I'm actually hiring those guys to help me with things. Why is someone going to pay me when they could just go pay them or you? And that was really hard for me. It was like, well, I get it. Yeah, people, they connect with me a little differently when they might connect with you. I mean, look at you. You got all those fucking tattoos, like maybe they look at me a little bit differently, right? And so what I realized was, and ultimately, look, we're all talking to the same people.
Yeah.
But in my messaging, in my marketing, I'm specifically talking to a very highly driven, highly, high pressure corporate executive. And even more so, I'm drilling down specifically into, if you are a financial professional, there's nobody that knows your life like me. And as I'm about to launch, I don't know when this is dropping, but August 1st, 2023, I'm starting a corporate wellness program with 2 different companies, 2 independent financial advisor firm, private wealth management firms. One's 25 people, another's 100 people. So I'm starting to work with 125 people in a corporate environment.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been talking so much smack about it for the last several years, and I finally did something about it. And it's honestly, that's where, to me, you, me, and 100 other people we know in common could get up on a stage, and 99 of them are more qualified to talk about health and wellness than me, from their educational degrees, from their experience in person on the floor, and maybe from their certifications and things like that. Right. And I have things. I have mental performance certifications, mindset certifications, nutrition certifications. I have that stuff, but I haven't been practicing it as long as everybody else. But not one person on that stage, at least that I'm aware of, would have a 20-year corporate experience and now has, 8+ years personally in his own transformation, and now 5 years, because it started in 2018, when I was with Jay, starting a little side hustle, 5 years working with people like me one-on-one. Nobody has that combined experience. And so that's where I can take this cross section of two, expertises and bring a solution to a place that, quite frankly, really needs it. Because here's the thing that I've noticed, right? Like, you have people that show up to your gym and they make tremendous progress, but they're constantly up against this 800-pound gorilla, which is their career. 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day in an office. Got to go out for client drinks or a dinner. Got to go on this work trip. And even if you have none of those things, you're taking home the stress of work. And what if you had the tools to be able to deal with all those things? What if you had the tools to be able to leave the stress at work? Because it's never not coming. That's the thing. We always try to figure out how to not be stressed about work. Good luck. I'm stressed about work, and this is a different career, totally different career. You're stressed about work. We do different things inside of the same industry.
Right.
And so what if you had the tools just to leave it there, to be able to diffuse it? What if you had the tools to become a better committed, partner, husband, wife, spouse, whatever your relationship is? It doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. A better parent. If you don't have either of those, I mean, how many of us have, high school friends that we've lost connection with, college friends we've lost connection with because we've been head down, blinders on, grinding in our career? And then obviously the physical side. What if you had more energy, more mental clarity, you looked better, you had more confidence, you carried yourself better because you're in the best shape of your adult life? And so if you had those combinations, you would make more money. So to speak the language of the people that I'm really trying to talk to, it's like, even if you don't care about a lot of these things and you think money is your end all be all, well, you'll make more doing some of these things. And so that is where I know I'm the best. And I can confidently say that. It's not because the nutrition advice, the training advice, the mindset advice, whatever, would be any different or better than what you would provide, because what you provide would be incredible for people. And there would be so many similarities. But it's either my story, it's my experience, it's the way I present it, it's the how, it's the little things that I might say in the language, in delivering it to the financial professional and the corporate executive, where they're like, yeah, that's my guy.
What would your advice be to somebody who may be in a position that you were in just a couple of years ago? They want to get started. Is it to find that specific niche? Is it to, like, where would you say that they need to start?
Are you talking from a business perspective or
from a business? Yeah, a business perspective. If somebody's in a position where you were at 2 years ago in business, like maybe they're just quit their job and they're looking to dive into this entrepreneurial world, or maybe they are they're just about to quit. Like they want to get the fuck out.
Step one: don't quit. Don't quit yet. Don't quit yet.
Get it going first.
Get it going. Have some sort of proof of concept. Play around with what you're doing. Can you do it as a side hustle? Like, like Jay challenged me to go ask 10 guys that that you've been helping on the side, just with your own advice, or they've been paying attention to you. Go ask 10 of them, see if they'd work with you. See if you can develop something. Like, so what I did was I asked 10 people that I knew, close. They were close to me, but I knew they had like some sort of vested interest in what I was now doing. I was either helping them, they were paying attention to me, or I knew they really needed it and they cared about me and I cared about them. And I effectively, which is what I've done with this new company program, is like, I just showed people how I live my life, and I just put it into a deliverable program, package, container for people to go, oh, okay, I do this now. All right. And what happens if this, if this happens, and we talk about this, but figure out what makes you unique. And this is where people get tripped up, because they're like, well, nothing makes me unique. Well, it took me 4 years to figure out my unicornness in this world. And so a couple questions you can ask yourself is, one is like what Jay asked me: what would you do if you didn't have to worry about money, but you still had to work every day? And don't say play golf and drink, because I would do that already. That job's taken. I already have it. So, um,
And that would, and by the way, though, I think when people say that, it does get old, right? Like otherwise you'd probably still be playing, playing golf and drinking.
I took like 8 months off in 2008. I left UBS, a big bank I was working for, and the guys that I was working for we were starting our, our brand new firm. And so I basically was off. Like I was going at the office here and there, but I wasn't doing the heavy lifting. Like I was just a junior guy. So they were doing all the heavy lifting. And for like the first 6 months of that 8 or so, I wasn't actually going into the office. So I was at my club in Tenafly, New Jersey, playing golf every day. And it was a complete shit show. And while it was fun, like I felt like shit. I looked like shit. It was not healthy for my marriage. Nothing was good. So play golf on the weekends and play golf, after work and play golf for business with a client or whatever. That's not a job that you want.
It's like the Jordan Peterson quote. I don't know if I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like, if you want to lie on it, because people think about retirement and they're like, yeah, just have this vision of lying on the beach and drinking margaritas all day. And he's like, well, how long do you want to do that for?
Yeah.
You want to do it for a month, a year? Because pretty soon that's going to get fucking old and you're going to want to do something, so it's like having that understanding that is not what you, even though that might seem like what you want, if you're like busting your ass right now and you're working hard on something, in reality, that's going to get really old really quick. And I think the thing that we all need is purpose, right? We need some type of sense of purpose, a mission, a reason for doing work that we feel matters to us for whatever reason. And if you're just thinking of like doing nothing, then that's only going to be exciting for a very short period of time.
Plus, I'd like to keep making money and go to different beaches for weeks and months at a time. So
there you have it.
Toggling in and out of that lifestyle is important. To go back to, what I did and in which you asked, what would you do if you had to work, right? But you didn't have to like worry about money right away. And I'll get to the not worrying about money right away part in a minute. Second thing is, do you have skills that come easily to you that are difficult for others? And that can be like, literally, I have a business that's centered around consistency, habits, showing up on a daily basis, like doing the boring stuff. I'm talented at it. I don't know if I've tricked myself into it. I don't know if it's because I've seen the results that it's produced, but I have a trait of consistency. I have a trait of discipline. I have a trait of delayed gratification most of the time. I have a trait of grit. I have all of these characteristics that I've developed. I wasn't born with them. I developed, but that a lot of people don't have. And people will pay you money to help them develop those things and show them how you did it and show them a process, show them a program, show them a structure. So do you have, skills that other people don't have? If you do, maybe you can make money off of that. And so if you can find a place where you're doing something you enjoy and you're providing a service of value, right? Solving a big problem, like how I described people's lives inside of the office. If I could solve all of your issues that result from, here's the thing, like, and I'm sure you've dealt with this before, maybe you have an early morning client or something, like they don't make it to the workout. It's like, yeah, alarm went off. I couldn't get up. Well, they didn't consciously think like, yo, fuck Chris, fuck this workout, screw my body, screw my goals, screw it. I'm not doing it today. They didn't do that process. What happened was that they had something come up at work at 2:00 the day before. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't within their control, but it was extremely stressful. They took that stress home because they didn't know how to leave it at the office. They walked in the door, they said something dumb to their wife or their husband or whatever. They didn't connect with their kids properly. Maybe they got into an argument with their family. They then decided to sedate that and open up a bottle of wine, because how else are we going to deal with our problems on Tuesday if we don't drink wine at dinner, right? And once the bottle of wine is open, of course, we're just going to finish it because we don't want to close the bottle of wine because that doesn't taste as good tomorrow. So we might as well just finish it. And so we drink a bottle of wine and we stay up a little late and we watch a little Netflix and we don't talk to our wives before we go to bed. And that's why we don't get up the next morning, because of something that might have happened at 2:00 at the office the day before that we couldn't control anyway. And so, where I'm going with all this is like, where when you have a process in place to be able to diffuse that, like you can charge money for that. And so as simple as that sounds, like people are after that. They're after, oh, I could still get to the gym and be stressed out. Sure you can. So do you have any skills, and identify those. From there, test it out. While you're doing that, don't quit your job like I did. I was fortunate to have, some savings, some money in the bank, the ability to sort of live off, a nest egg for a period of time. I say, not joking, but jokingly, the window cracked open, right? We got a little space in the window. I dove right through the glass, instead of just slowly raising that window up and exiting over time. And so while you're developing something new, can you change your lifestyle? Because I had developed a lifestyle, your typical Wall Street guy lifestyle, big house, country club, couple cars, lots of vacations. I don't say this like, flippantly, like, I don't know what my budget was. I made money. I spent money. I put some money away, made money, put some money away, spent money. And that was the hamster wheel I was on. And so could you slow down your hamster wheel? Your Range Rover lease might not be up for 14 months, but could you get a Jeep Cherokee, after that? Because like Jeep Cherokee's fine, especially if you're going to transition into a career that's not going to replace the income. If you're making high six figures, $1 million a year, and you're starting a coaching business that is going to make 150 to 200 grand, I don't know if anyone can do the math here. It's a big difference, right? So if you're still living like you're making $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 a year, you're going to have a problem in a couple of years. Okay. So maybe you can bring down some of your fixed costs, and not all of your fixed costs can be brought down on a whim next month. It's not like you can look at your credit card bill and go, oh, we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. You should also do that. You should also go through your credit card bill, things like that. But there might be structural things where you're like, ooh, do we need to do that? And not because you want to deprive yourself or your family of these great experiences, because you have a plan, you have another path that you want to go down. And maybe that requires a 3 to 5 year transition period of Jeep Cherokees and Jersey Shore, vacations, as opposed to in the Bahamas and Range Rovers. I'm making this up. I'm sure you're picking up what I'm putting down, and doing that. And again, audit everything that's going on, adjust, act. And you may find yourself in a place that you can confidently make a move. You have runway to do it, and you have the vision of be like, okay, 2 to 3 years from now, I'll be, conceivably I'll be here. And to me, that would be the most responsible, most calculated way to leave a 20-year career that pays a lot of money and go start your own business. What I did, I think, is admirable and is a cool story, but is by no means, feasible for a lot of people or responsible.
Yeah. And I would agree to all that. My story as a firefighter, and when I quit, I wasn't nearly making anything close to, $1 million a year, and I didn't have a family to support at the time. But I did do it that way, where I was like, all right, I want to get the fuck out of here. This is the thing I want to do. And over about a 4-year period, I was just building TTS, learning about business, learning about obviously everything else that goes into running a gym business. And finally, after about almost 4 years, I was able to pull myself out of that job and quit and walk away. Now, I think regardless of if anybody's listening to this right now, whether they're making $1 million a year in their job or they're making, 50 grand, the process will still be the same. Like you're still going to have that fear inside. Like, look what I'm walking away from. This is the thing that everybody for your whole life is telling you is the right move. This is the smart thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. Look at all this money. Look what you're leaving behind. So all of those things are going to be running through your mind. I think when I quit the fire department, I think I was making close to 90 grand a year or something like that. And it was the most money I've ever made in my life, by the way. Like, I come from a broken home, my story, addiction in my family. And for me, I never even believed that I could make 100 grand. I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, that's so much money. There's no way I'll ever make six figures. When I got hired at the fire department, I'm like, holy shit, like, all right, am I actually going to do this? And that was the first taste of making like a healthy salary versus what I was making prior. And so making just about 90 grand a year, for me to walk away from that was a really scary thing, especially, coming from an Italian family. My father, like, talked about the pension and he talked about the benefits and all those things. So I think the point is, doesn't matter how much you're making or where you're at, if you are looking to get out of the job you're in because you hate it and you want to start something new, still approach it the same way. But the fear, those emotions that are going to be surrounding that decision, they're still going to be there. And those are, I mean, I'm sure that you could chime in on that. Like, what are some of the feelings that you were dealing with when you were walking away? Like, were you ready? Were you all like out? You made your decision, or were you dealing with a lot of like fear and anxiety around it?
My desire to get the hell out of it overpowered my fear. I didn't think much about the next several years. I just wanted to do something different. I wanted to get away from a lifestyle that, even at the time, like, so here's another thing that I realized people don't really, know. I spent 5 years as like healthy Brian inside of Wall Street, right? 3 of those years or so, 2 to 3 of those years, I was really in the depths of transforming and changing. The last 2 to 3, I was in maintenance mode. You think about being in a diet phase versus being in maintenance. I've been in maintenance for a while. And so, I didn't have that like pull to get me out from despair. I just wanted to do something different. But I associated the career with, all the problems that I used to have, and I wanted something new. And so, there was some fear around like, what do I do next? But it was more about like me just, not wanting to do the thing that I was currently doing. I think what removes, and this is a quote I just heard from Chris Paul, because I pay attention to a lot of basketball guys. And he's an interesting, like, I think he wrote a book recently. He's been on like a bunch of podcasts. I sent to my son because he said some great stuff. He has a son. I don't know if he's in high school or middle school or whatever, but he's a young, kind of promising basketball player. And he's always telling him like, just stack days. Like if I promise you, if you stack days, you'll start to see improvement, And so that's applicable to if you have a young athlete and you're listening to this as a parent, or it's applicable to you as, your own self in whatever area. Think about your career. Think about where you're at. It's because you've stacked days. It's that you didn't show up making whatever salary you're making right now, whether that be 100 grand. These numbers are all are arbitrary. 100, 500, a million, 10 million, whatever. You didn't make that on day one. You stack days. And so in order to do that, like, you have to get reps remove doubt, right? And so you get confidence by repetition. The more you can repeat things over and over and over again, the more that fear goes away and you just become confident. You build up a body of evidence. Say it's like you can have these affirmations all the time. You talk to yourself in the mirror. There's no better affirmation than the evidence that you've built over the course of time that you are who you say you are. You know that you can do the thing. So what if you have if you have this side hustle or do this thing or shift your, how are you going to know that you can live on a Jeep Cherokee and going down to the Jersey Shore instead of a $25,000 vacation, at the Ritz somewhere? Well, go down to the Jersey Shore and see how fun it is with your family. Get a Jeep Cherokee and drive it around and be like, all right, it ain't as cool as a Range, but like, still gets me from point A to point B and looks pretty good. And so I'm sure there's a heavy Jersey crowd. We can tint the windows. We can get some nice rims. I mean, like you can make it look good. Yeah. So like, the only way that though is by doing it. The only way that showing up to the gym and busting your ass produces results is by showing up to the gym and busting your ass and getting the results. And then you have that evidence to fall back on. So when the alarm goes off at 4 o'clock or 4:30 for me, and I'm like, damn, I don't want to do this. I'm like, well, I've gotten up at 4 o'clock for the last 8 years. I'm pretty happy with the way I look and feel. What if I just keep doing that? you know? And so you find success.
Mm-hmm.
You find some version of success. Find the ingredients of the cake that you love, that you want to bake, and bake that mother effer over and over again. And that removes the doubt, at least for me.
Mm. You mentioned your son there. And one of the things I enjoy most about your social media content is the stuff that you do, you know, the message that you put out there for fathers, parents leading their children, and leading by example. And I guess I just want to take a second and acknowledge that, because I think that's such an important message to put out there. Because one of the things that I see you say repeatedly is like they're watching you, and you know, in other words, probably, but your children are watching you. They see what you're doing and they're going to emulate you. So I just want you to speak to that a little bit, and kind of, I don't know, kind of where that stems from. And I guess that's just like any parent trying to set a good example, but just wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Means a lot coming from you, because you have high standards. So that's awesome that you think that. Thank you. So I have two young kids. My son was going into 8th grade. He'll be 14 at the end of September. So he's 13. My daughter will be 9 soon, middle of August. And she's going into 4th grade. And it comes from a couple different places. Number one, I was an athlete. I played basketball. I went to college on a scholarship. I, could have played professionally overseas in Europe. I chose not to. I chose to start a career. Despite having some great success, being very good, went to a great high school. I went to Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey, in Bergen County. I was a great athlete. Like, I believe that I did not live up to the potential that I had. I don't think I worked as hard as I could have. I don't think I worked as hard as I should have. And when I say I don't think, I know. And I have some subtle regret over it. Now, I don't regret anything that my athletic career brought me. The connections, the friendships, the camaraderie, the lessons, all of those things. But I did not max out my potential as an athlete. Now, I do not guide my son because I have that regret and I want somehow to feel fulfilled. I do feel fulfilled as an athlete. Got my 1,200 points and my 700 rebound ball up there from
I
college.
see that. 730 rebounds, it says. No,
that's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Make sure you get that right, dude.
I had a tough junior year too. I was injured most of the year. I just need people to know that I should have had more points and more rebounds. So he's going to have his own career, and I'm good. Like, if the kid, he's a mini me. He's already 6 feet tall. He's 13 years old. He's a left-handed pitcher. He's going to be a 6'6" plus, likely left-handed pitcher. Now, for anybody who knows baseball, knows that the potential that the cash register can ring there if he's really good. And if he's not, who knows? But the potential's there. So he's also a good basketball player, but to be fair, he's probably going to go the route of, after high school, baseball in college and beyond, if there is a beyond. And so I want him to understand how diligent you need to be as an individual in whatever your craft is to be great. And so I'm attempting to set a standard for him, not jam it down his throat, just have it be there, like this fucking ozone that he can't escape around him. And it's like, this is how I live my life. This is the standard that I live my life by. And it produces excellence in certain areas. And if you want that, if you want it, not me, if you want it, and this is something I really struggle with, because I say these things, but it's very hard to actually put into practice. But I do. I'm doing a pretty good job. If you want it, it's there, but you got to work. You got to work. And we're just getting to a point. He's 13. It's just starting to click, because I really, truly believe it's because I've been very hands off on this and not pushed him too much and just done my thing in the background. And now it's like, now he's asking questions. Now he's going to, I just heard the door slam. He just got back from one of his training program workouts. He goes to a gym. He's doing his individual work. He's doing his agility work. When they don't go 3 days a week, they'll do 1 or 2 workouts here with his friends with all my stuff. They're pushing the sled, they're jumping on boxes, they're doing their thing. And we've just scratched the surface. He doesn't even know what hard work is. He has no clue what hard work is yet, but he's starting to show up more and he's starting to care. And some of that is puberty and hormones. And his voice is starting to crack and he cares about how he looks a little bit more, which is cool. Let's use that. Let's use that as fuel. But for him as an athlete, I just want to make sure that he understands and has a model to follow. And then, in general, like for my kids, like I just want them to have like a standard in their life. So my daughter is going to be, singer, actress, gymnastics, theater. Like she plays basketball because I coach it. She loves to play volleyball too. She's probably not going to be an athlete, and that's okay by me. But like, I want her to see a standard in a man. I want her to see a standard in a father and a husband who carries himself a certain way. And it's like, if your kids you don't know this yet, but your kids are not going to care really what you say, but they'll really, really watch what you do. They really will. And that goes for what you're doing positively and what you're doing negatively. So, every time you come home and you go on a couch and you crack a beer and you turn on Sports Center and you watch TV, your kids watch you. Anytime you come home and do a set of 20 push-ups and squats and ask them if they want to take a walk or do some fun fitness outside, they're watching you. They may say no. They may not want to do it, but they are watching you. And if you just, consistently show up over time, going back to the theme of something we've talked about over and over in this, in this particular conversation, I'm sure you've heard from Chris a lot if you pay attention to him. If you just keep showing up over time without fail, despite your feelings, despite your emotions, despite what's going on in your life, as best as you possibly can. You got a newborn, you don't sleep very well, you show up, you can't not fail. You can't not fail at this thing. It's like we never, I did mention the Waze analogy thing. Like you get in a car, you put a destination into the GPS. The GPS knows where you're at. So it has the two critical pieces of information. It plots the best route for you, right? On your route, if you make a wrong turn, the GPS reroutes you. While it's rerouting you, it doesn't like tell you you're a loser. It doesn't tell you to go back to the place you started from. It doesn't shame you. It doesn't guilt you. It doesn't second guess you. It just simply reroutes you. And if you can learn to reroute yourself and just get back on track and head back towards the destination. Now, the more you get off track, the further it's going to, or the longer it's going to take to get to your destination, right? That time to destination will tick up if you keep going the wrong way, but you could still get there if you just get back to it. And so I like to tell people all the time, like, just your consistency, is a function of how often you can get back to doing the things that you do. Obviously, we want to put stretches, we want to string these stretches together, but I don't have, every day is perfect for me. I have several days that usually aren't, but just keep coming back to it. So going back to your question, sorry for starting to ramble. I want my son to reach his potential if he wants it. And then I want to be the example for my kids for that, for the rest of their life. They have a standard that they live by. And it's one that they pass on. Because like at the end of the day, people talk about making money for a legacy. Like, I don't know anything about my great grandfather. I don't know if you do or not, but I would imagine most people don't. It's like, if you think about it, what kind of legacy are you leaving? Like 2 generations from now, no one's going to really know about you. You know your name, maybe a couple of vacation homes you bought for the family, but no one's going to know like your story. I don't expect my great grandkids to know about me leaving Wall Street and my wife telling me she was going to divorce me and like me. No one's going to know that, but they might have the same habits that I instilled because my son does it with his kids and then his kids pass it down. So for me, like, I think legacy can be more of like how you carry yourself, what you do, what you believe, things like that.
Dude, so many gems in that. And listen, I think that's one of the most powerful. This is probably one of the most powerful pieces of a conversation that we've ever had on this show. And it's because like that's everything you just said there. It's like, that's why you do what you do. That's why we do the work, right? Because there are so many people that, let's just use fitness as one example. they look at fitness as a means of like, I want to look better, I want to feel better, and I want to do this thing, but I can't overcome like not eating fucking ice cream on a Wednesday night. Like I can't overcome this or that. Like, and they keep running into these same problems, but it's like, if you realize what your behaviors, the examples that your behaviors are setting for everybody else around you, because you might just think it's about you. If you're boozing, or if you're skipping the gym, or if you're eating ice cream every 7 days a week, you might just think that's about them. The only problem with that is going to be the fucking size of the jeans that you have to buy. But in actuality, it's the impact that you're making on your children, on your family. It's about you, but it's also about them, because like you said, they're watching you. And I think it's just one of the most powerful things, man. I can't think of a better way to end it than that, because I think that's the message I want to leave everybody with today, dude.
I love it. I appreciate you. One more thing that I just thought of as you were mentioning, I mentioned Chris Paul. I was listening to this podcast. It's a good one, actually. Chris Paul and Rich Roll. It was a great podcast.
Okay.
He was talking about, like, he's from North Carolina, I believe, and like Southern cooking and this and that. Like, people say things are hereditary. Genes are hereditary. He's like, recipes are hereditary. Like habits and what you do are hereditary. So I don't mean to like throw shade on anyone who has a tough time losing weight, because everybody in their family has been overweight, but like most likely your habits have been transferred down to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have overweight family members. I ain't overweight,
Right.
So thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Just that made me think of something. And I'm going to forget the fucking guy's name. Is it Gabor? You might know who I'm talking about. He was recently on Joe Rogan. He has a book out. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. Anyway, psychologist, psychiatrist, what the fuck is his name? Gabor.
You had a great outro and I just ruined it.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But anyway, he was talking about addiction. Yeah. And you made me think of it because you said, like, is this hereditary? And a lot of times people will say, like, addiction is passed down. And what he was saying, his point is, no, it's not the addiction that's passed down. It's the trauma that has caused the addiction that is passed down.
Yeah.
And I think it's, okay, trauma, habits, behaviors, rituals. It's all of these things that are passed down, because the trauma is the root cause of these habits and these rituals and these behaviors. So I don't know. It just made me think of that too, because it's like, if you're stuck somewhere, getting to the root cause of why do you keep failing? Why do you keep ending up in this fucking cycle? If you could figure that out, then it gives you the opportunity to break the chain and then pass that on to your kids. So anyway, we'll wrap it up there, dude. But Brian, this was a great conversation today, dude. I really enjoyed talking to you, and it's been too long. We got to get together soon. Are you going to be in Jersey anytime soon?
Hopefully mid-August. Yeah.
Mid-August. All right. We're going to go to DJs or what?
I might have to
Where can everybody find you, dude, if they want to follow you?
By the way, I was at the Yankee game yesterday. There was a guy walking around with a Mickey Mantle jersey and a DJ's hat in Anaheim.
No way.
Yeah, I live in California. I was at the Angels Yankees game, and he walked by DJ's Mickey Mantle, and I like almost chased after him to give him a hug. But
I was gonna say, you should have got that fucking guy's number.
So good. I have a podcast called The Success Lift. That's my brand. The Success Lift podcast. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn is my name. It's Pannuzzo. Those are the best places to check me out, man. Awesome, brother. Well, hang on the line for a second, but thank you so much for coming on today, guys. Make sure you go ahead and follow Brian. He always puts out a lot of great information, a lot of similar stuff that we talked about today. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next week on another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. Peace. Thanks, bro.